Hey guys, this is Joe Harper with Truther Ministry. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing some pretty exciting footage that I've taken from the state of Minnesota today. So the past few months, I've just been really deeply researching the Nephilim, the biblical giants, the narrative of Genesis 6. This is something that I've talked about before on my channel. This is something I've written about in my books, and it's a subject that's just really fascinated me. This biblical narrative of that Genesis 6, 1 through 4, it talks about the days before the flood, and it says that there were giants in the earth in those days and also after that. And as I've been researching this, we continue to see that cultures all around the world have talked about the existence of giants and even the fact that giants existed in North America, which is something I'm going to be talking about more today in this video. So, something that really interested me when I was doing some research on this, I was reading Doug Van Dorn's book called Giant Sons of the Gods. And this book is highly recommended. I would highly recommend this book. It's one of the best books I've read on dealing with the biblical theological side of this issue. It does a really great job of laying out some good exegesis, making a strong theological case for believing the biblical narrative of the sons of God being the angels who came and mated with human women and produced a race of giants. It avoids a lot of the speculation of other books. And so I read this book, I really enjoyed this book, and as I read through this book, what really interested me was that as I went back to there's a number of appendices in the back, and one of them was talking about giants in the state of Minnesota. And Doug Van Dorn even had a map on the back of some places where there have been claimed to be burial mounds in the state of Minnesota. And this really piqued my interest because Minnesota is the state that I grew up in, and it's the state that I've lived in my whole life. And having some of this history so close to home was really cool for me and really inspiring. So I decided to do some digging and decided even to drive around and do a little research. And have taken some footage that I'm going to share today. So this is such a cool topic that people who have researched the giants, this evidence of giants around the world, they have said that the remains of giants have been found all across the world, including in North America. And people who have done excavations, there are these burial mounds all across North America, and many of them have been lost to history, but there's still a few that remains. And some of these burial mounds simply have the remains of normal human beings attributed to tribes of Native Americans. But some of these burial mounds across North America have been excavated and have found the remains of giant skeletons. And there's been whole books written on this, including The Ancient Giants Who Ruled America, The Missing Skeletons, The Great Smithsonian Cover Up by Richard J. Dewhurst. This book is pretty interesting. This book was really good because he literally shows all the newspaper articles from the 1800s and the 1800s, the early 1900s, and there's hundreds and hundreds of these articles of people who have discovered giant skeletons. So this really fascinated me. And so today, what I do in the footage I'm going to share here in a minute is I went to Indian Mound Regional Park in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I went and looked at some of the mounds that have been visited because they give a snapshot of what these mounds look like from across North America. And I show people how these mounds are reminiscent to the mounds that have been discovered that show the remains of giants. I went up to Pine City to try to dig around for some information there. I went to downtown Pine City. I didn't find as much information there as I hoped. The reason why I went there is I researched the giants in Minnesota online. I discovered that in Pine County in northern Minnesota, there have been over 100 of these mounds discovered over the years. Many of them have been lost. Some of them still may be up there. So, and they have a Pine City Historical Association. So I thought maybe if I went down to Pine City, I thought maybe I could find somebody who worked for that association or somebody who would have some knowledge of the mounds in the area. I didn't really find as much there as I hoped. The Pine City Historical Association had a location on the GPS, so as I went there, I thought maybe they'd have a small building there or something, and that really didn't end up being the case. I walked around the city hall building, looked around a bit there, but there wasn't a ton there. They have some contact information on their website, so I could do some further research there. And then lastly, I went to the LaCroix River State Park, and I went and hiked some of the trails there, and I went up the Hinkley Fire Tower, and I talk a little bit about the biblical flat earth and God's creation at the end of the video. So I hope you guys enjoyed this footage that I've taken. I tried to have some fun with it as I was out there trying to present some really good information to get people thinking about this topic, trying to generate some excitement about the Giants, did a little field research. I'm hoping to go out again. There's some other mound locations in Minnesota I might visit. There's a giant mound up by International Falls, close to the Canadian border. That's a little bit of ways away from me. I might go there. That mound has been closed to the public since 2002, so I'm not sure what would go into that. There's some other location on Doug Van Dorn's map that might be worth looking into across the state of Minnesota, and I might do some other research in some other parts of the country too. We'll see what the Lord has. But I hope you guys enjoy this footage. God bless.
Hey guys, this is Joe Harper with Reformed Truther Ministries. So today here I am standing in St. Paul, Minnesota at Indian Mounds Regional Park, hunting for evidence, historical evidence of the Giants, and trying to show people things such as the mounds. There have been mounds found across the United States for hundreds of years, and many of them have the remains of giants located within them. And here we have an example of a number of different mounds that have still been preserved. In the state of Minnesota, there have been hundreds of mounds discovered across the state. Many of them have been bought up by the Minnesota Historical Society. And even though many of these mounds have been destroyed or they've been lost to history, some of them are still preserved, like the ones I'm going to show you here in a minute. And conventional historians, conventional archaeologists say that these are the burial mounds of Native American tribes. And I certainly do not dispute that many of them are simply that. But when you get into the history, including newspaper footage and evidence, you see that many of these mounds have been the resting places of giants, the giants that roamed North America, that often had white skin and red hair, 6 fingers and 6 toes. And even though these mounds behind me may not be literal giant mounds, they show what these mounds have looked like throughout history, and it gives us an idea that these people who are talking about the existence of giants in history, what we read in the Bible, Genesis 6, and even in North America, we find that there's historical evidence for these things. This isn't just crazy people making stuff up. There's evidence of mounds and giants and all of these things. And if you look behind me here, you see these mounds. You see that, look at that large mound structure. And many of these mounds across the United States, they're so large because they were the resting place of giants. And that is really something to see. So hopefully this helps people to think through what they're hearing in history when these crazy biblical people who talk about giants and giants in the Bible and giants in North America, maybe looking at these mounds will help people to start to take a step back and think through these things. So why don't we go and get a closer look at these mounds? So we see a number of these mounds here in St. Paul, Minnesota, and it's really extraordinary. I'm standing up on this hill. I can see the landscape of downtown St. Paul, and it's located here. This park is adjacent to this major metropolitan area in the capital of the state of Minnesota. And it just shows how when the white settlers came and they settled, they found these things. They found the tribes of Native Americans that lived here, and they found these burial mounds. And these mounds are considered sacred places to the Native Americans. And that makes it so interesting that we see that how when these two civilizations came together, there were things that the white people did not understand, and one of the things is these mounds, and we see them here. They're large. There's an entire park around them. When you discover this park, you see that in fact that it says that this is a sacred burial site, and like I said, it is attributed to Native Americans. And perhaps these mounds are the resting places of Native Americans, but countless of these mounds across the country, across the entire continent of North America, are in fact the mounds of giants. So hopefully this shows what we're looking at here. So as I'm standing here, I have more mounds located behind me at Indian Mounds Regional Park in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I have a sign here below me, and it explains how these mounds were considered sacred to the Native Americans, that they had spiritual significance. And this is really interesting because when you get into the history of certain tribes like the Ojibwe that lived in the Minnesota area, these tribes, they had in their oral traditions accounts of things such as giants or even Sasquatch, which they called the Sabe, and many other supernatural things that the contemporary narrative of evolution doesn't want to talk about, doesn't want to touch. And that's why so much of this history has been destroyed. We're so fortunate that right here in the middle of this city in Minnesota, we have these mounds located behind us to show what is in fact going on. So this is a really neat thing. So hopefully we'll be able to find more evidence here as we travel across Minnesota looking for the remains of the giants. My next stop is going to be Pine City, Minnesota. So that will be exciting. So in this picture here, you see the text of the sign that I was referring to and talking about, and you see how it talks about the spiritual significance of these mounds. And it was interesting how it talked about the sacredness of the earth meeting the sky and how some of those things are reflected in the mound. So this picture is really interesting if you read through it, the description of the Native American beliefs with the mounds. And that's interesting when you think that these things may be sacred, because the giants are known to have been these supernatural spiritual creatures. So all that kind of ties in together, which is pretty interesting. So I'm standing here in Pine City, Minnesota, about an hour north of the Twin Cities. Pine City is located, if you go from the Twin Cities north on 35E, the highway, it's about an hour north of the cities, and it's in between the Twin Cities and Duluth, Minnesota by Lake Superior. The reason why we've come to Pine City today is because there's over 100 of these mounds located in Pine County, and Pine City is the location of Pine City. So I'm going to see what I can look and find today. We're going to go to the Historical Society. We're going to go down to the St. Croix River State Park. We're going to go to the fur trading post, and we're going to see if we can find any evidence for some giants. So in this next section here, I'm showing some pictures that I took inside the Pine City Hall building. Like I said earlier in the video, I was looking to see if the Pine City Historical Association had some type of building. It showed up on the GPS, but it just led me to downtown Pine City, so that was a bit of a dead end. But I thought these pictures here were pretty cool, showing the Voyagers, and they showed how they have found silver in these areas, that they excavated this down by the fur trading post site. All that was pretty interesting. None of it tied into the giants. And I went down to the fur trading post. That was more of a touristy area, and it was a bit of a dead end. And due to the fact that I was out there in February, it really there wasn't really much of a lead there. But anyway, these pictures are here for you guys to see. So here we are on our last stop of our journey. We are at the St. Croix River State Park, close to Hinkley, Minnesota, and I am standing next to the Hinkley Fire Tower. Pine City didn't have as many leads as we hoped for giants. We went into the City Hall building and we found a small historical plaque. We found not much more than that. So here we are by the St. Croix River, and we're going to go up and take a look at the view, and we'll end our day by looking out at the legendary horizon of God's creation of the biblical flat earth. So I'm standing here in St. Croix Park at the top of the Hinkley Fire Tower, just absorbing God's creation and seeing how cool and majestic it is. And you can really see as far as the eye can see. I don't know how many miles it is, but you can see the landscape for miles and miles around. And I don't know about you guys, but this says to me, when I look out at this landscape, I see God's biblical flat earth. So I'll let you guys be the judge. So the capture in the camera does a pretty decent job, but it really doesn't capture it to the scale that you would hope. But even still, you can see you can see as far as the eye can see, and it's a beautiful thing. And I just think, I've looked through the windows of jet airliners too. I don't see curvature, people. I mean, you make up your own minds. You say I'm crazy, but I just don't see the curvature. I think we're trained to believe that. And I think once you start to question that, you can look at God's landscape with eyes that are more objective, and you can see as far as the eye can see. So this is some cool stuff here. So giants in the flat earth, I think there's some biblical concepts here. I'll let you guys make up your own minds. So I just got finished going down the tower. We're gonna do a little hiking here before we head home. I think it's pretty cool going up that Hinkley Fire Tower. Those steps are closer together than you think. It's a long way up. It's over 100 feet in the air, but you sure do get a great view. As we're going, we're gonna hike a few of these trails before heading home. One of the reasons I wanted to come up by Pine City and Hinkley is because there's over 100 mounds in this area that have been found over time. That's what I discovered doing my research on the internet. And I knew I might not find a lot. I knew the only way to find out would be to come and look for myself, but I just wanted to take some time, come up here, and at some point you gotta get off the computer and get out of the books and get into the field a little bit. And that's what I did today. And I feel like there's some good first steps. I think I'm gonna have to do more research. Now I'm gonna go back to the library, as it were, and see what I find in the future. But some good stuff. Those mounds in St. Paul were cool. And I feel like even though I didn't find as much as I hoped in Pine City, that's still, the only way to find out is to go. The only way to find out is to go. And I feel like that was a success in that sense. Now I know what's there and what's not. And as I continue to research, I'm going to see what I can find. See, what you guys got to understand is a lot of these mounds that have had giants in them, they've already been excavated and they've been taken. People like the Smithsonian Institute, other historical groups that are covering up biblical history, they're covering up the giants. And so they've taken those bones, they've taken them away. I'm kind of late to the game, as it were. I'm out here looking around, seeing what I can find. But a lot of this stuff has been found and they've taken it away because they want to push this evolutionary narrative. They don't want people to know the truth about God's creation. They don't want people to know the truth about the giants or flat earth or any of this stuff. So what are they doing? They're taking it, they're hiding it, they're destroying it. They're doing whatever they can do. I got a big step here. I told myself if I find some Sasquatch today, I'm going to retire early. So, but yeah, that's what they're doing. And that's what's going on. And I think we had a successful day today. And there's still stuff out there to find. We just got to be willing to look. That's what's cool about this. So this is all I'm going to have for footage today. I'm going to keep looking for giants. I'm going to keep trying to prove to people the flat earth, because you know what? The truth is the truth. And it may be unpopular, but we got to keep hunting for it and looking for it and trying to show it to others. I've gotten pushed back with this stuff. People think I'm a little bit crazy, but you know what? That's part of the fun too. So I'm going to sign off here. I'm in the middle of woods in northern Minnesota. This is Joe Harper with Reformed Truther Ministries. God bless.